Hello again. I'm going to talk some more about our mind, the dualistic mind, vijnana. So the first thing to say is there's nothing wrong with the dualistic mind. It's not something we're trying to get rid of, because the dualistic mind is actually very useful to us. So it keeps us safe. For example, we need to be able to distinguish between something that's dangerous to us and something that isn't. So we need to distinguish between, say, a mouse and an elephant. We need to distinguish between hot and cold, or we might burn ourselves, or between left and right, or we might get knocked down by a bus. So the dualistic mind is very useful to us. What becomes a problem is our own mind. It's an internal process that causes us problem. And essentially, it boils down to hope and fear. That's what really takes us away from the present and leads us, you could say, on false tracks. So obviously hope and fear are very closely connected. And we can see those operating at this time, with the coronavirus. Hopes that perhaps we don't get ill, hopes that loved ones don't die, hopes that we can get out of the house soon. All sort of hopes that we can go on holiday again. Our lives have been disrupted and we don't like that disruption. So that's another polarisation, isn't it? Things that we like and things that we don't like. And all this happens so automatically in our mind that often we don't analyse and look at what we're hoping for or fearing. It's all going on, very quickly in our minds. And that's why we meditate, so that we can really see what arises, how it arises, where it arises. And so get to know ourselves better and get to know how we trip ourselves up, how we cause ourselves and others pain through what we do with this dualistic mind. So I talked yesterday about what we add to our basic senses, instead of letting our senses operate in the present moment so that we can relax and enjoy what our senses are telling us. Instead of doing that, we build stories, fantasies, imagination, and it takes us away from the present. So you may notice that I've got a different rupa behind me, and this one is of Milarepa, the great Tibetan yogi who lived in caves and who, occasionally had to eat nettle soup because that's all he had to eat. But he didn't do it in a self-punishing way. He did it out of a sense of freedom and realisation of the futility of holding on to anything. So one of the verses that I've learnt from one of the texts that I particularly like, which is The Stages of View at the Heart of Definitive Meaning by Khenpo Saltrim Gyamtso, says that material enjoyments are renowned as the cause of happiness. However, those who are free of attachment, like the Lord of Yogis Milarepa, are happy even without material possessions. Therefore, the cause of happiness is just the mind. So although we can't control the mind, we can train the mind. So I'll say something more about that in a minute. But I want to read you a story from The Yogi's Joy by Sangharakshita. And this is a story taken from the 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. So This is quite early on in the time that Milarepa had taken to the mountains, and he has an experience that leads him to a profound realisation. So there he is at Eagle Castle of Red Rock, Jewel Valley, and he's been sitting in meditation for a long time, possibly weeks. He comes to and he's feeling hungry, and he decided to prepare some food, but after looking about he found there was not a thing left in the cave, neither water nor fuel, let alone salt, oil or flour. It seems I've neglected things too much, he said. I must go out and collect some wood. He went out. But when he'd gathered a handful of twigs, a sudden storm arose, and the wind was strong enough to blow away the wood and tear his ragged robe. When he tried to hold the robe together, the wood blew away. But when he tried to clutch the wood, the robe blew apart. Frustrated, Milarepa thought, although I've been practicing the Dharma and living in solitude for such a long time, I'm still not rid of ego clinging. What's the use of practicing the Dharma if one cannot subdue ego clinging? Let the wind blow my wood away if it likes. Let the wind blow my robe off if it wishes. Thinking thus, he ceased resisting, but due to his weakness from lack of food, with the next gust of wind, he could no longer withstand the storm, and he fell down into a faint. When he came to, the storm was over. High up on a branch of a tree, he saw a shred of his clothing swaying in the gentle breeze. The utter futility of this world and all its affairs struck Milarepa, and a strong feeling of renunciation overwhelmed him. So that's the story. So he has a moment of profound insight into the absurdity of life. So it's as if though that shred of clothing, this is what Sangharakshita says, it's as if that shred of clothing, the last thing he possessed, represents all worldly attachments. In a mere shred of cloth, he sees all worldly things, everything that one could cling to, wealth, possessions, pleasures, friends, family and connections, appearance, status and achievements. He sees that they are all liable to be taken away from us at any time. They can all just blow away. And we know that's true because we're seeing that now. Completely out of control we are in the face of the coronavirus. We're living with uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when we'll be allowed out again, out of the house. We don't know who of our loved ones are likely to die. So we're thrust into a state of huge uncertainty. And it's very hard within that to stay, to let our minds stay in the present for even a moment. Now, that's not saying that we want to ignore what's happening. I'm sure none of us are doing that. So, yeah, we hear daily about what's happening out there, but we need to give ourselves a break. We need to learn how to relax our mind into the present and realise that we haven't got the control that we would like to have, to realise that, well, however anxious we are about what's happening, it's not going to change it. So living with hope and fear is a limitation to our awareness. So for a moment, if we can appreciate this moment, this one now, where presumably you're well enough to be sitting here listening to me. I'm looking out, I can hear the birds. Maybe you can hear them too. There's a blue sky out there. Spring is springing into life. I can see the birds collecting bits and pieces for their nests. There is still the world going on, and I can sit here comfortably, feeling gratitude for being here, feeling love for all the people that I can't see because I'm separate from them, but they're all in my heart. And so are you. So that's all I've got time for. Don't want to make this too long, and see you tomorrow.